Okay, now we're going to talk about employee privacy laws and a brief look at immigration laws. First of all, with regard to employee privacy, suppose that you are a young lady that went to work for my company, and your job is you sit in a little what do you call those little office? Oh, there's a word for it, but I can't think of it at the moment. But it's a little enclosed area in an open space. They put the dividers. You're in a little cubby hole there, and what you do all day is you handle customer complaints either on the internet or on the phone. It's my phone system, it's my computer system, my computer. But every once in a while you get a romantic, sometimes a really hotly romantic email from your boyfriend, and it's a long day, and maybe you send back a little hotly romantic email back to him. So you've been doing this for a month or two. Maybe you even send back and forth some racy pictures. And then you find out that I, as the employer, have been monitoring all of your incoming and outgoing email. Whoa. The legal issue is, could you sue me then for invasion of privacy? And the answer is only if you had a reasonable expectation of privacy. If when you came to work there, I never told you that any of your incoming or outgoing calls or emails would be monitored by the employer, then maybe you have an expectation of privacy, and yes, you could sue me. But if I told you, and when you came to work there, look, I'm paying you by the hour to do calls and emails for me, and you're doing them on my phone system and on my computer, and my payment for the internet, so your calls and your emails will be monitored. Now you have no expectation of privacy, and so you would not be able to sue your employer for invasion of privacy for monitoring your internet or your phone calls. Another privacy issue is lie detector tests. Suppose $300 in the petty cash box goes missing, and only 5 or 10 employees have access to that box. And so I say, all you employees, you're going to have to take a lie detector, and I'm going to find out which one of you stole that money. Can an employer force employees to take lie detector tests? No. Generally speaking, they cannot. For one thing, lie detector tests are not that accurate. They can be fooled. That's one reason why they're generally not allowed as evidence in court. There is one exception, though. If you work for the government doing classified super secret SAM stuff, yeah, those guys can submit you to a lie detector test, but it's understood that you're doing a different kind of job there. Okay, another privacy issue. What about HIV testing? Or what about pandemic COVID-19 testing? That one's not so clear yet, the COVID one. But HIV, when it first came out, people had all kinds of wild ideas that you could catch it from sitting next to somebody, and they were terrified. And so there were some employers that said, if you want to work here, you're going to have to be tested for HIV. And the law said no. Once we figured out, that you can't catch it from sitting next to somebody, they said no. That's a medical privacy issue, and you cannot be required to be tested as a condition of employment. Another issue that I think is going to be much more hotly contested in the law in the next few years is genetic testing. Suppose you graduate from college with a degree in chemical engineering, and you're looking forward to going to work for a paint manufacturing company or a chemical company, and you apply for a job, and they say, well, your credentials are impressive, but just take this cotton swab here and swab out the inside of your cheek. We're going to do a genetic test on you to make sure it's safe for you to work with the chemicals that we work with in this facility. And as long as you're not allergic or none of those chemicals will give you cancer or make you ill, you're hired. But the test results come back and they say, I'm sorry, but we cannot hire you, and we recommend that you not work for any paint factory or chemical company because you have a genetic predisposition to getting cancer if you work with these particular chemicals, and we work with those chemicals all the time. Well, there's two ways of looking at that. On the one hand, you might be grateful because they may be saving your life. They figured out you're going to be cancerous if you work in their company. But if your whole career is about using your college degree in chemical engineering and you've just been rendered unemployable in most places where a chemical engineer can work, how do you feel about the fact that your genetic information is no longer your private information? Maybe you don't want employers doing genetic testing on you. I suspect that in the near future, as genetic testing becomes cheaper and more accurate and quicker, there are going to be some lawsuits and some legal issues about employees and DNA testing, genetic testing. Okay, so those are the, one other thing on the privacy. Usually we have an HR person in the live class. And if you have an HR person in there, you ask them and they rattle off this long list of things. It's no longer allowable by law for an employer to ask you in a job application interview. So they cannot ask you if you're pregnant or you intend on getting pregnant. They're not supposed to ask you about your sexual preference. The whole long list of questions that they're not supposed to ask you. Have you ever been convicted of a crime? But so one day I'm in class and I'm having the HR person rattle off this long list of stuff. Actually, there wasn't an HR person that day. I was rattling off the long list of stuff. And I was rattling it off to this young girl in the class. And I thought that she would be very impressed by that. And she just kind of shrugged and went, who cares whether they ask me that or not? If they want to know that about me, they can find all of that out just by looking on my Facebook page. So you see, your generation is quite a bit different attitude than mine about the issue of privacy. But the fact of the matter is, all that stuff you put on your Facebook page, all the wild parties and drinking and smoking and whatever you're doing, someday some potential employer of yours who wants more information about you before they decide to hire you, they're going to go look that stuff up. Maybe they're not supposed to, but if it's there, you put it out into the public, they're going to go look. So please keep that in mind when you're posting all those wild pictures and telling stories about your latest arrest and all that stuff. Okay, so that's it on employee privacy issues. The last thing is immigration laws. And some of you may be surprised to learn that there is law in this country that says an employer has to fill out a form on every employee showing that they verified that the employee is either a U.S. citizen or that they're otherwise entitled to work in this country, which usually means they have a green card. Every employer is required by law to do that. And if every employer did do that, we would have a far less of a problem with illegal immigration in this country, because those illegal immigrants come here hoping to better their financial position and get a job that pays better than what they can get in their own country. So if we just had full-on enforcement of the existing immigration laws that are on the books today, a lot of our illegal immigration problem would go away. But of course, there is no political will for the prosecution of employers. Every once in a while you hear a story about the immigration authority doing a raid on some business and finding out a bunch of people are working there as illegal immigrants and somebody gets fined. But as a general rule, we have little or no enforcement of the immigration laws that are on the books, and because of that we have large problems with illegal immigration. I usually stop at this point and tell the story about my dinner I had with Luis Sanchez. Luis Sanchez is a wonderful man who is a lawyer and also was the head of the business department at Sierra College at the time I got hired here. In fact, he's the one that hired me. He saw me speak at a Rotary Club and came up to me afterwards and asked me if I'd be willing to try out teaching at the college. So I'm grateful to him because I've really enjoyed that. But I'm having dinner with Luis one time and we're talking about illegal immigration in this country. And I got up on my high self-righteous white horse and said, well, every person who's here who came into the country illegally is a criminal when they get here because they broke the law to get into the country. so they should probably all be shipped out. And Luis looked at me with his huge brown, compassionate eyes, and he said, "Bob, if you knew that your children were starving, is there anything that you would not do?" Well, of course, I had no response to that. And in that one moment, Luis changed a lot of my personal opinion about illegal immigration. So, in honor of Luis, I try to tell that story every semester, and hopefully for some of you it will have you think twice about the issue of illegal immigration. By the way, Luis, when I knew him, he was he was department chair here, and he had been a teacher here and a lawyer, but he had a dream, and his dream was to eventually become the president of a university. And he is now. Isn't it nice when people that you know achieve their dreams?